So, the Dragon Prince, The Mystery of Erebos, Book 5, Ocean, is now with us. Some of you might remember when Book 4 was released, I made my first video on the show, which was partly relating to that season, but more broadly about certain issues I'd had with the show since its beginning, and how many of those problems had its roots in the Dragon Prince never really stepping out from under the shadow of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And while the tone of that video was generally critical, I did end on an optimistic note. After all, the show had the green light for the full 7-season saga. Even if Season 4 left a bad taste in the fandom's mouth, there was still time to fix things. Naturally then, I came into Season 5 with some questions. Could Season 5 fix the comedy, the lore, the themes, the pacing, the story, and Raylan? And to challenge myself, I'm going to try and do this whole thing without comparing the show to Avatar once. In fact, I will end this video if I mention it, okay? I know, yeah, I'm already sweating. And to start, let's do something that I didn't do in the last video and run through each episode to give more of an overview of what actually happened this season. Season 5 opens with Ezran and some tagalongs at a giant clam in the middle of the sea, making a big blue laser shoot into the sky, which is how screenwriters let you know that something significant is happening without needing to use their imaginations. Truth be told though, I really did like this opening scene. The architecture of the sea shrine was really cool, the brooding nature with the rain made it feel like this proper epic high fantasy moment, and Ezran didn't speak, so yeah, strong start all round.
We've got to have money.
Elsewhere, Rayla is still pensive over her parental pesos, in a scene that got me excited over the implication that Rayla might be getting a dedicated storyline this season after spending most of Book 4 just hanging around in the back of scenes until the show needed to remind us how awkward it is for Callum to have his ex-girlfriend be there. So, Rayla carving out her own plot on rescuing her loved ones seemed like a great way to give her some agency again. No. Catching up with the rest of the characters, Callum's trying to study the Ocean Arcanum, Team Bad Guy is stuck waiting for Viren to recover from his mild case of soul necrosis, and... oh, Jesus, why is he still in the show? In search for answers on how they get the funny little people in the money, Rayla makes her first move on her new independent season-long character arc. She breaks into Viren's old lair and finds an evil jar of... pony? No! God, don't eat that! And claims her not dad's epic loot. After retrieving Runan's bow, Rayla promptly just gives up on that whole saving her loved one storyline, pledging to help Callum and Ezran with their mission first. Thanks. I'm glad we had this chat. Rayla finds herself arrested for snooping by nobody's favourite character, only to have Callum trust her and hand Rayla a free go do crime pass for all of Catolis. I really appreciate the show not dragging this out into a whole miscommunication drama between Rayla and Callum. It's genuinely refreshing to see a show immediately de-escalate that setup so that they can get on with the actual plot and plan their mission to go to Xadia and find more info on the Startouch elves. Elsewhere, Terry attempts to calm Claudia down with aromatherapy, which, I'll admit, after Season 4 I was certain was just going to be Terry farting, but no, it was actually just a very sweet moment between the two. Maybe nature is healing. Joe Biden says something about not getting his adrenochrome hit, and Ezran gets the Sea Dragon to agree to help them to stop Erebos. So, actually, after episode 1, so far, so not terrible. Yeah, it's a setup episode, but the tone seems way more adventurous, and honestly, if nothing else, the Raylan interactions in this episode alone are better than anything we got from Season 4. All in all, this was a decently strong opener. Episode 2 is a lot lighter on the actual plot. Rayla and Callum begin their mission to Xadia, which is kind of just an excuse for the show to put them on this cute couple's road trip. They stop at roadside inns, they go sightseeing, they watch the night sky. Very cutesy, comfy, cliche romantic stuff. Terry and Claudia are also hitting all the romantic cliches. You know, when you meet a nice girl, things are going well, and then you decide to take it to the next level by dragging her dad's corpse through the woods? Deciding that doing their best Weekend at Bernie's impersonation is clearly the best course of action to take to reach Aravos' prison. This is something that immediately goes wrong as they almost instantly drop Viren, causing him to fall into the screen cap dimension. This triggers a scene that is set in a red room with black and white flooring, slow jazz, backwards speech, a Pelly holding a log. Wait, this is just a Twin Peaks parody, isn't it? I'm not entirely sure that the target demographic's going to pick up on this one, Aaron.
Brilliant. I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
I mean, I know I just made a Weekend at Bernie's reference 20 seconds ago, so, much like Bernie, I don't exactly have a leg to stand on, but I don't know if the kids in 2023 are all too familiar with Lynch and Frost's revolutionary 1990s surrealist mystery masterpiece. I certainly appreciate it though. Back with the heroes, and they find themselves being attacked by an angry bantha that straight up murders Callum's horse. But Rayla is able to save them thanks to a magic arrow that she received from one of her many parents. Claudia wears herself out by dragging Viren, and while she rests, Terry casually builds an entire fucking boat? I'm sorry, my guy, but you couldn't have made a stretcher or something earlier in the episode when that might have been useful, but all of a sudden you're constructing romantic river barges like you're in Minecraft. What is this? And then Viren spends the rest of the episode having nightmares about his second favourite kid.
Oh, but first you have to pay the toll.
You gotta pay the troll toll. If you want to get into that boy's hole, you gotta pay the troll toll to get in.
Episode 3 picks back up with Ezran and Zubeir summoning the dragons to help them stop Claudia and Viren, and also Amaya suggesting some kinky shit to Janai to help her get over her spooky prophecy nightmares.
I know the dreams will pass, I just need a distraction.
Spooky prophecy nightmares are absolutely this season's go-to vehicle for delivering information to the audience that it can't be bothered writing into the actual story. Janai has recurring spooky nightmares, Zubeir gets them down the line, Viren essentially spends the entire season in one. Sparingly, yes, they are effective, but it does become a bit of a crutch this season. When Callum catches up with Amaya and Janai, he recounts to them the events of Season 4, and they look about as miserable listening to it as I did watching it. If this is intentional, fair play, that's pretty funny. If not, even funnier. After hearing Callum and Rayla out, Janai forbids them from visiting Luxoria to collect more info on the starter shelves, because the city curses all who remain there, and she is deeply traumatized from having to kill her own subjects. Something which Ezran has seemingly never been bothered by. I genuinely love how Raylam's response is to immediately run off to Luxoria anyway. Like I've said before, how one of the best ways to get an audience on board with a protagonist is to make them the active party in progressing the plot, and 3 episodes into a 9-episode season, things had already started to drag out a little. So seeing them sidestep Janai's bullshit as quickly as possible is super endearing. And again, like it did in episode 1, the show de-escalating any unnecessary drama that would only slow the story down, this time between Janai and Amaya, is very welcome. Oh! Meanwhile, the bad guy barge hits a waterfall, causing Viren to fall into the water. Terry stops the boat using his vine magic, which, again, might have been more useful before the disaster. And Claudia dives in to rescue her dad, finally waking him up, only to find they're being tailed by one of Zubeir's dragon scouts. Also, Kareem meets this Satan-looking guy in the desert or something, but honestly, there's no reason that any of us even need to pretend we care about his C-plot. In episode 4, Raylan, Amaya and Kazi arrive at the Bookery of Luxoria, but need to be careful to be gone by sundown as the city is still teeming with monsters during the night. Rayla and Amaya have this nice bonding moment over this shared sense of duty and care for Callum, whereas Kazi discovers some information about a secret MacGuffin sword that can kill Startouch elves.
We did it! We found the answer!
The fuck you mean, we, son? Rayla opens up to Callum about her guardian guilders, and he runs back for more info, but the night is upon them, and they come under attack from more possessed banthas, who kill another horse because screw horses this season, I guess. things are looking pretty desperate until Zubeya arrives and makes quick work of the beasts, smashing them and biting them and zapping them to death with lightning. This is child's play for a dragon. Amaya makes a solo run to save Bait, and when she's fighting her way back, Zubeya just doesn't help. Like she's forgotten how to use lightning or something, just letting Amaya fight for her life for no reason. And then Amaya tells them to leave without her, but why? There's no explanation why Zubeya can't just kill some more banthas. She literally kills one by complete accident on her way out the library. Then on her way out, she gets infected by a bantha bite, so Corvus now makes his heroic sacrifice and gets left behind with Amaya. Also, Kareem met up with Sol Regim or something, but it didn't go anywhere, and I still don't care. Episode 5 opens with the Prince brothers disagreeing about what course to take. Ezran wants to pursue an elf who the Ocean Dragon told him knows the location to Aravos' prison, whereas Callum wants to go after the sword so that if it comes to it, they can kill Aravos. Rayla sides with Ezran, which, fair enough, not an objectively wrong decision, but then why the hell did we just waste half a season following their journey into Zadia to find info on this sword if they're not even going to retrieve it? Choosing to go with Ezran's plan is a reasonable decision in character, but why would you write the season to build up the momentum about the mysteries they uncover in the library just for them to suddenly switch to a totally different plan that hasn't even been mentioned until this point? It's that sort of thing that makes this story feel really directionless at times. Anyway, Kareem wants to steal Janai's Sunseed so that he can, I don't know, get up to all sorts. And in order to obtain the seed, he employs an evil vampire elf who owes his family a blood debt, named Kim Dale, which I think is a reference to Pixies and the Breeders' alt-rock legend Kim Deal, which is another late 80s, early 90s reference that I just don't think the kids are gonna get these days, Aaron. Viren, who we last saw waking up from a 3-episode coma, is now in a slightly different type of coma, begging the question what the point of that entire story development was. Terry tries to cheer Claudia up by doing this stupid bee dance thing. Listen, Terry's nice, but I still don't understand a single thing about his character. He's just one-dimensionally nice, and I don't get how he's still going along with his plan that he knows is obviously evil, or what his motivations are, or how he ended up in a relationship with someone who's racist against elves. There's so much to him that just feels completely half-baked, like he's only there so that Claudia has another character to talk to, regardless of if it makes sense for him to still want to be around them. And you could honestly replace him with a cardboard cutout because he's seemingly unaffected by anything happening in the story. He's always just nice Terry in every scene. In a way, I almost feel like he's holding Claudia's story back, because whenever the situation becomes too desperate and the story feels like it should explore how hopeless everything is for Claudia and how much she's sacrificed for so little in return, Terry undermines the mood by finding her some pretty flowers and giving her a foot rub. His presence is undercutting the angst that Claudia's story should have. Anyway, the good guys find Ezran's elf and she does the Yoda thing where she comes across as brain dead and then chastises them for assuming she's brain dead, even though she was purposefully acting brain dead. But unlike Yoda, she actually has a reason, and the joke about Ezran not judging her appearance but actually totally judging her appearance was maybe the first Dragon Prince joke that's made me chuckle in about 4 years, so good job. Long story short, she tells them where Aravos' prison is. And also, Zubeya is becoming a zombeya. So, episode 5 is where I think the wheels start to come off the track this season. I actually quite enjoyed the content of the good guys visiting the Archmage, but even so, having the crew change direction over Ezran's plans and putting Viren straight back into another coma in the same episode just kills the momentum either story had building up to this episode. And honestly makes it feel like the writers don't actually know where the story is going. Which feeds nicely into episode 6, introducing another villain and another plot, even though the show's already struggling to fit in what it needs to for the existing villain plots, given how much it's dragging them out. The heroes need to hitch a ride to the sea where Aravos is locked up, so they find themselves in this shady pirate town looking for a ship and a captain. This brings them to the attention of Finnegan, the pirate lord who runs town, who offers to trade Ezran a ship in return for bait, resulting in this highly gifable reaction, which I assume the marketing department really wanted to become a meme. And for what it's worth, I like Finnegan. He's a charmingly douchey villain most of the time, but can flip to become genuinely threatening when he needs to be. He's a fun bad guy to have on screen, but with 3 episodes left, is now really the time to bring in a new baddie whose goal is to be mean to glow toads when we've already got 2 existing villain arcs, not to mention we've yet to see Iroh this entire season of the mystery of Iroh. Anyway, Soren ends up hiring the blind ship captain from season 2, who's now working with Nyx, and Ezran and the gang spring a plan to rescue the baby glowtoads from Finnegan. Yay! More mascots for the show to forget about. As for Team Dark Magic, they're being stalked by one of Zubea's Dragon Scouts when Claudia snaps and fights it head on. She's about to do something actually cool, but then Terry ruins it by talking her down because he's always so nice. To think, there was almost a moment where something of consequence could have happened, and we wouldn't want any of that in our exciting adventure story now, would we, Terry? If episode 5 is where the momentum took a dip, I think episode 7 is where the animation and directing followed. The first shot opens with these awkwardly synced up waves that look copy-pasted, and I can't imagine it would have been that difficult to offset them slightly. Ezran starts naming the baby glowtoads, giving us these weird transitions that I assume the marketing department hoped would become a meme. And Callum's trying to impress Nyx with his magic, which ends up with Soren going overboard.
If you see Claudia again, please tell her I said hi.
If I don't survive, tell my wife hello.
Just when they think they're in the clear, the good guys notice Finnegan is chasing them down, so they try to lose him by sailing through these sharp rocks, and the whole thing is just very awkwardly directed. They lead Finnegan down this narrow passage that's blocked at the end by a ship's wreckage, and the idea is that they will squeeze through this tight gap to the side of the wreck. But the scene doesn't actually convey that at all. At no point does the gap look remotely big enough for them to get through. Every shot we see shows the ship heading directly towards the wreckage, and at the point where they do get past it, we never actually see it happen. It just cuts to directly after they've made it through. So from the audience's perspective, there's no indication whether they actually went around the ship or straight through it until Rayla looks back and sees the wreck is still there. It's a needlessly confusing scene for what is a fairly simple concept, and I suspect the result of the scene being modelled in 3D without actually leaving enough space for them to get the ship through without everything clipping into each other. So they just shot around it in this very clunky, unnatural feeling way. Finnegan's ship, it turns out, is a giant enemy crab, which, again, really awkward scene. I get that the idea is that the revelation is so crazy that it stuns everyone into silence, but even after the ship crashes and they get captured by Finnegan, they still don't say anything. So it's like they're stranded in the middle of the ocean and the guy they've been running away from all episode has just captured them, and nobody has any reaction to the situation at all. This whole episode feels like it could have done with another round of editing. Anyway, elsewhere, Kim Deal breaks into the Sunfire Elf camp to nab the Sunseed, but when she finds it's been hidden, she goes for plan B and kidnaps Janai, with Amaya returning from Luxoria just in time to learn about her fiancé's disappearance. Episode 8 opens with the crew of Finnegan's ship letting the audience know that they know about the Wellerman song, which I assume the marketing department hoped would become a meme. Finnegan offers Callum a deal. Use dark magic to help him kill the ocean dragon so that he can rule the waves, or his friends will be killed. Back on land, and Kareem has a deal of his own. Janai's life for the Sunsneed. Amaya denies the trade and ambushes Kareem, but stops when Kim threatens Janai. However, as he isn't actually the head of the family, Kareem can't release Kim from her debt, so she has nothing to gain by listening to him, giving Amaya the chance to rescue Janai, with Kim and Kareem escaping. Finnegan starts torturing Rayla to get Callum to cave in, and he lashes out. Beaten, Callum gives Finn the spell he wants, but that deal is off the table, and he's going to use Rayla as sea monster bait. Callum escapes and rescues her with his sky magic, but Finnegrin starts to freeze Callum's blood, revealing that he keeps his crew in line out of fear for this spell. Callum breaks out, unlocking the Sea Arcanum in the process, and Soren actually does something for the first time this season, taking hits from Finnegrin's henchman, while showing him kindness and reflecting on how he used to obey Viren, until the big guy, real name Elmer, realises he doesn't have to follow someone who's abusive to him, and kills Finn. The ship arrives at the location of Aravos' prison, and the team seem in better spirits, all apart from Callum, who remains despondent, even after Rayla tries to console him, as the camera pans below deck to where Callum was chained up, revealing serpents, showing that Callum has given in and used dark magic. So yeah, episode 8 is actually really solid. I know I've ripped into a lot of this season, and I'm still not convinced that this Finnegrin tangent mini-arc was the best use of time, but as a conclusion to this arc, this episode works really nicely in relating both Callum and Soren's darker pasts to them resolving issues in this episode, and even, dare I say it, the Kareem plotline being relatively entertaining. Anyway, final episode, and we begin with Zubeia hallucinating due to her infected zombie bantha bite. Meanwhile, the good guys and the bad guys arrive at the Sea of the Outcast. Callum uses his new ocean magic to give the good guys water breathing, while Claudia casts a dark magic spell to make her bottom half an octopus, which I'm not sure biologically how that helps her breathe underwater, but magic, whatever. On episode 9 out of 9, Viren finally snaps out of his second coma, only for him to start hallucinating about Aravos, who then takes over his body, putting Viren in his third seasonal coma. God damn! Aravos reminds Viren that he's still on borrowed time, and that if he wants to make his resurrection permanent, he must sacrifice the blood of one of his children. Viren refuses to give up Claudia or Soren, when Aravos reveals that technically Mothboy counts as their child, making this animation's first demonic homunculus born to two gay dads, which is a great milestone in LGBTQ representation. I think. Personally, I would have stabbed Mothboy to death irregardless of whether or not it extended my life, probably about 4 episodes ago, but Viren sees through Aravos' manipulation, disavowing him and dark magic. And on this topic, I have just one question. Where the hell is Terry? Like, he was right there on the beach with them. What is he doing when all of this is going down? Where's he gone? Callum and Ezran are in the midst of their fight with Octoclauds when she cottons on to the location of Aravos' prison, but Rayla, pushing past her fear of water, slices off a tentacle, allowing Ezran to grab the prison pearl. And that's kind of it. The good guys win. Claudia loses a foot, Viren's maybe dead or maybe just in coma 4.0. It's all a bit underwhelming. The rest of the episode is simply wrapping up some loose ends. Miana betrays Janai to be with Kareem, giving him the Sun Seed and an army. Janai has another nightmare. Zubeia is getting her wounds treated. It's just very whatever. It kind of feels like the 3-episode Finnegrin mini-arc had a better conclusion than the 2-season-long quest to find Aravos' prison, to be honest. So, what are my actual thoughts on The Dragon Prince Season 5? What do we make of it all? Well, I'll say this, it's certainly a hell of a lot better than Season 4. I've seen reactions all across the board to this season. Some people love it, some people hate it. Compared to the previous season, at least I can say I enjoyed certain aspects of Season 5. I thought it had a strong opening, and there were some interesting darker moments. The character interactions seemed stronger than in Season 4, and while I'm not sure it was the content the show necessarily needed, I did think the Finnegrin stuff was pretty entertaining. So, definitely an improvement on Season 4, but has it rescued The Dragon Prince as a show? I'm not so sure about that one. If we come back to the questions I had at the start of the video, has it fixed the comedy? You know what? I'm going to give this a yes. While there were some cringy borderline moments like the bee dance and the Glowtoad reactions, the humour was way better. Like, not, you know, good or anything, but this was something that the writers said they were going to improve, and they have, by virtue of it now being at least tolerable. No more fart jokes, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say yes, they fixed the comedy. Has it fixed Raylan? Again, for me, a tentative yes. This is where the show is still reeling from the horrible implementation of breaking the lead couple up in a comic side story and then explaining nothing about it. For many who've read the comic, them being on good terms again is frustrating because the conflicts raised in that comic haven't been resolved, so Rayla and Callum effectively just getting back together feels unearned. Whereas for me, and viewers who haven't read the comic, I don't really care because I don't know what those conflicts were because the show never really explained them. And it would be weird if this show that already has horrible pacing issues suddenly stopped to have characters resolve issues that have never appeared on screen. So honestly, I'm just glad that the relationship between the two main characters isn't awkward and strained anymore, and a lot of the charm and the banter that made them work in the first place is more or less back. So yeah, feel free to disagree, but I'm happy to say that they fixed the thing that was incredibly stupid for them to break in the first place. Has it fixed the lore? No, but I didn't actually expect it to. There's too much stuff that's integral to the world that I just don't really like at this point for it to be changed. I'm not going to go into that, but you can check out the previous video if you want a more in-depth look. One thing I will say on the lore that I noticed though wasn't the whole thing about Aravos' prison that each of the royal dragons was only given a partial clue, so that you couldn't just get one piece of information to find it? I really feel like that should have been a puzzle where you need all the pieces to come together before you can see the big picture, rather than most of the dragons having an esoteric hint, apart from Rex Igneous, who has the exact specific location of the prison, and Aravos' IP address, and his social security number. Like, Rex Igneous' clue is doing 99% of the heavy lifting, where you could just go there and poke around for 5 minutes until you find the prison pearl. It's not exactly the even distribution of hints that I feel was probably intended. Has it fixed the themes? I'll give them the credit. Season 5 did feel a lot less preachy than Season 4. It wasn't anywhere near as bogged down with patronising speeches about why can't we all just unite and just not do war, crowd goes wild, which was definitely one of my biggest complaints about Season 4. This season seems to put more emphasis on being entertaining first, rather than having the right moral message front and centre. How successful it was is debatable, but I appreciate the effort, so yeah, some improvement. Maybe as a result, the main themes of reconciliation and peace building didn't come through particularly strongly this season, but the show shouldn't just be one note all the time. And there's at least hints that we'll get some more interesting explorations if Callum can be tempted back into using dark magic. And lumping the final two together, has it fixed the pacing and has it fixed the story? No. This is a difficult one because while I did enjoy the content of the episodes more this season, by the end of the finale I still couldn't help feeling really underwhelmed with what we got of actual substance from these 9 episodes. I mentioned it earlier, but the change in direction after episode 4 and introducing a whole new storyline in episode 6 makes the story feel directionless, as though we're just padding for time. Like, I cannot believe that the main bad guys of the show have spent 2 entire seasons just wandering around the forest and achieved absolutely nothing. Viren and Claudia used to be in positions of power. They used to be active threats to the protagonists. Now we're lucky if they even hold a conversation with anyone other than Terry all season. Like, would it really have killed them to shake this plot up with literally anything happening that isn't a hike or a boat ride through the wilderness, just to change the pace a little bit? Because it doesn't feel like Claudia or Viren are credible threats to the good guys anymore. They're just kind of pathetic and very homeless. And given how little Aravos we seem to be getting in the mystery of Aravos, who are we supposed to rely on for antagonism? Kareem? Nobody cares about Kareem, and even if they did, his villainy is aimed at Janai, not the main characters, or actively opposing their mission. I don't even think he knows Callum, Ezran, or Rayla exist. Which makes me wonder, where's the hook for us to come back for Season 6? Because typically in these shows, the stakes should be raised, but if anything, they've gone down. The final fight was really lackluster, especially when we know the show is capable of these grand-scale epic conclusions like we got in Season 3. The way Season 5's finale was being set up, Claudia should have beaten them to the prison and released Aravos, raising the stakes and overwhelming the protagonists, hyping up Aravos' powers and having the heroes narrowly escape with their lives. This sets up the hook of how are the heroes going to overcome this new, bigger threat that changes the status quo. Yes, it's very cliched, but it's a cliche because it works. What we got was a fight with Claudia versus Callum, Ezran and Rayla, where nothing meaningful is exchanged, they just fight. Viren's off having an identity crisis on the beach, Soren gets brought out all of this way and bafflingly has no interaction with his dad or his sister, which is what his whole character arc is hinged on, especially when Viren's been hallucinating about him all season, and he doesn't fight either, which is also his entire thing, so like, what's the point of Soren? And then the resolution to that whole fight with Octo-Claudia is that Ezran has Aravos' prison nice and secure. Viren is presumably dead, or at least morally neutral now, and Claudia has been taken down a peg. So like, if these guys weren't credible villains before, they sure as hell aren't now. Terry's perseverance through sheer empathy and compassion is the most threatening thing about them now. So what's the hook to make me watch season 6? What's the obstacle that I need to see the heroes overcome? And I get where the story is going with this. Claudia couldn't be the one who releases Aravos because, speculative spoilers, it's going to be Callum now that the prison's with them and he's shown that he can be tempted back into doing dark magic. But in order to lay that twist, they've neglected to set up any surface level story. So without fans predicting what that twist is going to be, we're heading into season 6 with nothing substantial in the main plot that needs to be resolved. Finn's dead, Viren's dead, Claudia's been thoroughly beaten, Kim's been pacified, and Aravos is secured. Yes, Kareem's still out for vengeance against his sister, and Zubeida's probably going to get worse, but ask yourself, is that really enough to bring you back to this show? Unfortunately, even though I liked season 5 more than season 4, it still feels like a season full of weird missteps and messy plots that leaves us going into season 6 with a situation less precarious and less interesting. The stakes have been lowered, and sadly with them, my expectations for what the Dragon Prince can be. But what did you think? Opinions are everywhere for season 5, so let me know. Did you enjoy it or not? Are you satisfied with Raylan getting back together? What do you think will happen with Aravos' Pearl? Where do the bad guys go from here? And what did you make of this season's comedy? I forgot to mention there was a joke that I liked with Aravos where he makes this poof sound, which I think was a reference to Ty Lee from